Thank you for that very warm welcome, DB, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to start with a quick flyover of the Inghams business. And I'll start with the fact that this is both an old and a new company. Old in the sense it was established over 100 years ago by the Inghams family, led most recently by the Ingham brothers. That's important from what we're talking about today from a cultural point of view. Apart from the many great legacies that the family created for the business, it also left a cultural legacy. And I guess best to describe that cultural legacy, which many of you would appreciate in OCI terms, of dominant red and green behaviours, particularly in senior leaders, because as a family-owned company, you had a lot of the decision-making very much at the top of the business, the owners of the business with a few trusted lieutenants. Therefore, the leadership group, the senior leadership group, tend to be very task-oriented. So much more of that red behaviour. And the broader organisation basically just was happy to get on and get the job done. And that was, you saw a lot of those passive defensive green behaviours. The company then was sold in 2010 and was sold to private equity. We all know what private equity does with the business. They're there to maximise their return on investment. It's not a long-term view. It's how do we take as much value out of this company as quickly as possible, turn it over, and move on to the next venture. So not a lot of effort in that sort of leadership goes into people, culture, or the long-term investments in the company. So then the company in 2016 is listed, and essentially that's where the area that Grant and I have been working with the business. And that's why I say it's a new company, because in many respects, as a listed business, brings a whole bunch of other challenges, and we've been working on the cultural journey. This is a business at scale. I doubt many of you really appreciate just how large the poultry business is in Australia. Across Australia and New Zealand, we have 8,000 employees. That's critical to understand, because as a cultural journey, our culture will not transform, will not get to where we want it to be until we shift the behaviour, the mindset, the attitudes of 8,000 people. Most of our efforts in the business in recent times have been at the senior leader group, where Grant will show you we're making tremendous progress. Of course, you have to change your senior leaders to model the right behaviour. But ultimately, our frontline leaders are going to be crucial to really transforming the culture of the business. Poultry is hugely popular. It's Australia and New Zealand's most popular protein. It's 50-odd kilograms per head per annum, and 70% of Australian households consume chicken 3 times a week. Heavily shopped, heavily consumed product. Not only do we have our own direct employees, but we have a huge network outside of that of different sort of contractors in our supply chain and in our farming network. So again, we want to have a positive impact on the cultures and the behaviours of those organisations as well. We are very conscious of our social licence to operate. For us, animal welfare is really quite crucial. All of our sheds and farms across Australia and New Zealand are RSPCA, or the New Zealand equivalent of SPCA, accredited. So we value animal welfare very much as a part of our identity and our integrity as a business. Just another quick fact, but at any one time we have, and this is not even our competitors, we have 25 million birds on farm, growing through to be processed. So it is a business at scale. We operate all around Australia and New Zealand. We have an extensive network of facilities. We're a fully integrated business. So from the genetics of the chicken all the way through to how we rear them and farm them, feed mills, supply chain, primary processing, further processing, out to customers. We service, as you would imagine, the biggest customers in the country, the major supermarkets, the large quick service restaurant chains like KFC and McDonald's, a huge food service industry. It's also critical for biosecurity. Australia, as many of you will appreciate, is very concerned about diseases coming to the country. So a dispersed network, particularly farming network, protects our industry and our business from those biosecurity risks. So that's really quite crucial. I just want to share with you a quick video for fun. We have a brand ambassador in Manu Fidel, who many of you will know from My Kitchen Rules as celebrity chef. And he does a whole series of work with us, both with external communication, but also to help us with our internal communication as well. And I just thought I'd share something with you very quickly from that. That'll work.
Hey Manu.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Inghams Primary Processing Plant.
That looks big already.
Do you want to go and have a look?
Yeah, please, yeah, it's bigger.
And then we go and wash our hands.
Hang on.
This is our breast fillet trimming area.
Okay. I wish I was working with people who are as fast as that.
Feel free to jump on the line and have a crack.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, give him more. Yeah, good idea.
Is that okay? I don't want to stuff it up, so.
I told you you wouldn't keep up. This is our DSI, Manu.
Okay, what's DSI stands for?
Direct steam injection.
So you program the shape on the computer.
Yep.
And then the water does the cut.
Yep.
And you get a perfect temperature of chicken.
Correct, spot on. And this is what we've got up here. Where are you going?
Tell me this is sauce.
What do you mean it's a sauce?
Is that sauce?
Of course it's sauce.
I can smell like smoked paprika, there's herbs in there, and oh, it's delicious.
Mate, it's just barbecue chicken marinade.
Do you mind if I get a box of chicken?
What for?
I'm meeting someone upstairs. We're gonna do a Sri Lankan chicken curry.
Oh.
Come.
So as DB mentioned, I came into this role 4 years ago from the board. It's a salutary lesson of being a non-executive director, becoming executive director. I thought I understood the business and knew how it worked until I took this job. So think about keeping your directors better informed is the lesson from that. Why the need to change? We confronted a number of issues at that time, and again, part of it is that legacy of how the business evolved to this point, and was still finding its feet, in a sense, as a listed business. There was a clear lack of strategic alignment between the board and the executive team. What the board thought was the right way forward, the best strategic priorities, where we could invest to grow, was very different from what the executive thought. A lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of confusion about what the priorities were. And that led to conflict and led to a weak executive and a weak board relationship. So we had to make sure that we worked on those two things very, very quickly, otherwise we were going to really be in trouble. We had process immaturity, which I found really strange and unusual coming from the organisations that I worked in, where the annual planning cycle was very, very prescriptive, had been laid down. You had a long-term strategic plan, an annual operating plan, a budget, a short-term manufacturing plan, all very laid out in a calendar. Everyone knew when it was happening, everyone knew what their role was. It takes a lot of noise out of the system. It's very efficient, very effective of organising your resources. We didn't really have that. We had quite entrenched and siloed behaviours. Again, not an unusual thing for large organisations. People were really great at understanding what they had to do inside their functional responsibilities, but weren't always necessarily cognizant of how that affected the broader business. And one of the things we talk about a lot in the business is enterprise thinking. The business was great in looking after its customers. In fact, the Ingham brothers facilitated the launch of KFC into Australia and New Zealand. They made investments that for our largest customer, Woolworths, were tailored to their business. It wasn't that we didn't have a good customer service ethic. What we weren't good at was recognising that these very large customers that we work with are very sophisticated. I've never worked in a company or a business where our customers know as much about us operationally as we do and interrogate us. If we go to a customer meeting, more often than not, we've got to take our ops and supply chain people with us because we need that subject matter expertise in the room to deal with the knowledge of our customers. So one of the things we really had to dial up was our customer engagement piece, our customer partnership piece. because of that heritage, that red and green nature in the organisation, we certainly had a culture that reinforced poor behaviour, and we had to work on that. And we had a lot of people with a lot of deep experience in the business, but we weren't always making the best decisions using data, evidence, and empirical thinking, particularly when it came to, do we make money out of going down this particular path and doing these things for our customers? So Grant and I sort of put our heads together and thought about, well, what can we do to start moving this journey along? We clearly need to get executive alignment, and we clearly had a view that this needed to be leader-led. It needed to be all-pervasive across the business. Certainly our collective experience told us that that's the best way to go. I was very public about two critical work streams that we needed to work on. The first one was a strategic work stream. Where's this business going? What's its competitive advantage? How is it going to be differentiated? Where are we going to create value to create the right sort of returns? And how are we going to execute that strategic agenda? The other work stream was the leadership, culture, and capability agenda. We cannot drive the strategic agenda if we don't have the right leadership, culture, and capability that matches the ambitions that we had on the strategic side. We needed to create opportunities for much more positive board engagement. We needed to rebuild the rapport, the respect, the communication between the leadership team and the board, and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what we were trying to do. We've implemented a very structured planning cycle, which is really working very well for the business now, and we put additional resource and emphasis against that. We did work on team capability. You'd imagine that, not a huge amount. I took over a team that had been largely turned over by the previous CEO. So, and most of that team are still there today. There was only one or two areas where we had to make changes or change roles within that. So that was a really good thing to be able to work with a team that at least was already established. We invest in that team. We invested very heavily, and again, something Grant drove really well that I was happy to continue to support was this idea of investing in our own team effectiveness. So doing our own LIs, doing our own Hogans, talking about our team identity, talking about what we were going to achieve as a team together. And one of the big things, which if you go back to getting out of that silo behaviour, which I think will be one of the things that we'll be most proud of, is the way we've developed, I think, cross-functional collaboration, the idea of shared goals between teams. We've been through a particularly difficult issue this year, and I doubt whether we would have managed that anywhere as well as we have without that change in people working in that enterprise thinking mode. And we then needed to engage with the broader business. We needed to actually, it's no use us sitting around a conference room table in our head office. We needed to actually get into the business and talk about where we wanted to go as a business. And the way one of the vehicles we used to do that was to build our own model of how we wanted to look, what we call the Inghams way. The classic purpose, ambition, what's this place going to be like to work. We wanted a purpose that was very oriented towards how do we affect people's lives? What's the external view of our purpose? We came up with the idea of deliciously good food in the best way with this tagline of always good. Always good in terms of the product, always good in terms of the customer experience, the consumer experience, but hopefully always good in terms of how we treat our people and our animals. We have an ambition to be the ANZ's first choice for poultry. We're not there yet, but we're working hard on that. We talked a lot about our values, and for me, values are really critical in the sense that culture, for want of a definition, culture is your organisation's values brought to life by demonstrated behaviour. So we established a set of values that we thought were quite unique to the business and quite important to define the business. And then we codified a series of critical behaviours that if we could see those behaviours demonstrated consistently throughout the business, we would be living those values. And of course, we had to think about what's our employee value proposition, how do we attract and retain great talent, how do we have the capability that we need to drive that strategy. I'm going to hand over to Grant in a moment to talk about some of the specifics of how we've worked on this. But the one thought I'll leave you with, because I'm sure there's many HR practitioners in this audience who sometimes have challenges convincing their organisation to make the appropriate investments in culture, leadership and capability. The money, the time and the people is required to do that. Last week, Inghams posted its best ever results since listing. Highest ever earnings, highest ever dividend, a balance sheet with all the firepower we need to drive against this ambition. So think about, there is a fantastic business case for working that stream of leadership, capability and culture, because at the end of the day, one of the things it needs to do is drive great business performance.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to start with just a couple of perspectives to share with you as well. Prior to joining the organisation, Inghams did an engagement survey. Yes, it's not Culture DB. And in that survey, we found that we had a hugely engaged workforce. I think it was 67%, if I remember right. I might have that number slightly wrong. And what that meant is our people were showing up. They were very proud to be part of Inghams, which is very, very common in consumer goods manufacturing organisations. So we had a strong heritage, over 100 years of history, a strong belief in the brand, a strong belief in the organisation, felt great about being there. But that comes with a whole range of challenges, some of which Andrew outlined before. Our strong operational focus led us to a point where we really had low innovation right across the organisation. We did have a lack of alignment, and Andrew talked a lot about that. But that lack of alignment led to entrenched behaviours. So where that showed up at times were people would be in meetings and agreeing to certain actions or outcomes, and then they would come out of those meetings and they would do what they think was right, regardless of whether that's what they had just agreed to. And so we had the organisation going in lots of different directions. Leadership wasn't clearly defined, so we'd never taken the time to say, hey, this is what leadership means at Inghams. And so really leadership was defined by your title and where you sat in the organisation. And while we had some very good leaders, unfortunately we had some leaders that sat at the very other end of the spectrum as well. And so people's experience of the leadership in Inghams was quite varied depending on who you were engaging with daily. And it would be fair to say, particularly through that private equity period, we had a significant underinvestment in people, although I hazard to guess that that may have played out towards the end of the family ownership as well. So when Andrew and I sat down and chatted about the things that we needed to do, one of the things that we were very clear about is we needed to be able to talk candidly and have very open conversations, even if they were different perspectives. And of course, one of the things the people function brings to the conversation is often a different perspective. And so we were able to really have very open narrative, which led us to some of the programs you're about to see. We would regularly and genuinely engage, and we made sure that throughout the challenges of this work that we're about to show you, that we remain vigilant on the journey. Because it's not a straight line from A to B, and there are setbacks, there are challenges, and you need to stay focused on the journey throughout. So let's have a look at this. I'm just going to quickly take you through these, just orientate you. So on your right is our leadership model. So fundamentally, we believe that everything starts with leadership. Leaders build and shape the culture. That culture creates an engaging environment when good leaders are leading in it. That delivers high performance, and the high performance across the organisation delivers improved performance and outstanding results. But while we focus on leadership, if you move to the middle model, we're not ignoring the organisation. So if you look at that particular model, again on the right, it talks about leaders. So we talk about values, behaviours, and particularly this concept of communication, this two-way communication, and making sure we're genuinely engaging with our people. But on the left, you've got to match that with organisational structure and design. You've got to have great processes and systems. And by that, I don't mean all online and digital systems. I just mean systems and processes that support what you're trying to achieve. I'd love to have more digital systems, but we've got Microsoft as our backbone of our organisation, and we keep running it. So we've got this model that says let's focus on the whole system, because if you don't get the system right, of course, what happens? The moment you take your foot off the gas, it all just reverts back to where it was. And so our focus areas as a team have been in 4 areas consistently. Firstly, our people's safety. We want people to show up to work and be safe, go home in the same condition they showed up in or better. And that is not only physical safety, but that's psychological safety as well. So we want people to be able to show up and be their authentic selves and give their best every day and go home feeling satisfied with what they've been able to achieve. The second is making sure we focus very heavily on this leadership experience and making sure that we're creating leaders, no matter where they sit in the business, that really understand what good leadership looks like and what the organisational expectation is around that. The third one's very important because when we talk about culture in our organisation, one of the words we use with it all the time is inclusive. We have over 20 plus cultural backgrounds in our organisation. We have 11 languages spoken on 5 sites or more across the organisation. Helping our leaders be very aware of that, helping our leaders respond to that, recognise that the communities that they've got in their workplace feel recognised and engaged. And one of the ways we do that corporately is through our communications tool to make sure that people can select the language of choice to receive their communications in. And we convert all of our policies into those 11 core languages as well. So inclusion, equity and diversity, but particularly that inclusion element, is a big focus of our plans. And then lastly, making sure all our other people solutions, whether they be remuneration or workers' compensation or any of the places that we focus on looking after our people, making sure that all lines up around the same language and the same processes. So let's dive in a little bit more. So this is our leadership framework, and it pulls together all of the things that we've pulled together really in the last 4.5 years or so. The top line is effectively new. Some of the bottom line were programs in place. So the way to think about this, top line's all about leadership, bottom line's all about technical training, essentially. But in those technical training, some of those leadership concepts pervade. So I'm going to pick out a few names just to kind of help you understand. So Connect. Connect is for our 6,000 teammates. And it's really helping people connect in with that Inghams way and understand their role in that. It's about helping break down barriers. We piloted with 450 leaders. And really, it helps people not only connect with that, but connect with the enterprise plans that we've got and helps people work on their well-being. We piloted this, and I've got a case study at the end, and I'll show you how it all comes together. Grow is our frontline and middle leaders program. It's designed for 950 leaders across our organisation. We're about halfway through that group. And it talks to things like constructive conversations, leading change, how do I grow my team, how do I onboard people. It's not hugely technical leadership. It's very, very focused on the fundamentals and getting them right. So we're trying to lessen that variability. If I move up to Thrive, Thrive is a program that focuses on our senior-most leaders. And this is a really important one that we did early. And it sets the minimum expectation we expect of senior leaders in the organisation. It increases awareness of self and impact on others. So as DB talked about earlier, that leadership shadow. and helps them become better leaders at leading organisational change. And then down the bottom, we've got a whole range of programs from Product Pride to our Safety for Life program and some newer ones like STOS, which is all about how do we create a really professional sales experience, professional sales skills, and then an experience for our customers. So let's have a look in. So in 2021, we did our first circumplex and we got our baseline. And you can see our results on screen. Oh, sorry, this is our exec leadership team. I'll show you the whole in a moment. So the exec leadership team, you see, made quite the journey in constructive over that period of time. So Andrew mentioned our team effectiveness program, and it was very, very much aimed at helping our leaders really lean in and lead this journey. And what you see here is a much more constructive style with the red and green defensive styles really starting to come in. And that was great to see that journey over that period of time. And we felt that in the way the team showed up, the way the team became part of the design of our effectiveness program. So when we started that program, it was myself, one of my team members, and Andrew designing it. And today, all of the executive team participate in the design of their own program. And that's been a big shift along the way as we become a much more constructive team. If we look in the organisation, I'll try and get that. There it is. You can see our baseline back in 2020. We termed we have this term. We all bunkered down under the nice green doona. We're all nice and safe under that doona. And you can see that there wasn't much shift across that time. The way we've shown up to design this is to be leader-led. So our leaders had to make decisions. Some leaders made great decisions, and some leaders didn't make great decisions about the things they focused on. We gave advice, and then we supported them through those programs. And whilst some of those leaders now would reflect and say maybe they weren't focused on the right things, what the first survey result and not movement has shown them is while they're very motivated, we need to focus on the underlying culture, not the things that necessarily make people happy in the workplace. Not to say those things won't make people happy, but we had this thread going through our organisation early on that it was all about people being happy. And we wanted to work that through and see where that landed for people. What we want in our culture is threads. Threads going across all of those locations that say when you land in that location, you know you're at an Ingham site. And how do you know that? Because continuous improvement, for example, might be something that's at every site. Safety, whether that be physical and or psychological safety, it's very prevalent at that location. So we want that to be across those locations, but we also want each of those locations to continue with its own personality and the strengths that it had already. So while not everything went well in our first remeasure, what was really pleasing is after all that investment in leadership, where we ended up with some of our leadership levels. And I'll give you a bit of a look at that now. So levels 1, 2 and 3. Level 1 is Andrew, 2 is his direct reports, and 3 the layer below. So these are leaders who lead big chunks of our business. And you can see there that we moved to a much more constructive way of operating. And Andrew referred to it earlier that the things that we're doing today, the problems that we faced into, if we had faced into them in 2020, we believe we would have got a very different outcome. We would have got a lot more blame, we got a lot more siloed behaviour, whereas right now the organisation is working as a whole to solve the challenges that we've got. But we're equally as proud that during that period that we did these, levels 4 and 5, so we're really getting into the bulk of our leaders now, we've already started to see a shift in the right direction. So there's defensive styles coming in and the constructive coming out. And what that's leading to, again, is the way we show up and work together and solve issues and deliver better outcomes to our customers and to our shareholders. And we're seeing some of that feedback starting to flow back from some of our customers. So we wanted to give you something that's a little bit more tangible than the circumplexes. So we've picked a site, and we picked a site down in Melbourne, our further processing site, at Thomastown. Ken, our leader at that site, has been a real differentiator. He's really leaned in from the beginning to really help us bring about change. So he's leaned in. At the same time, we've been able to run a number of programs down there. So Thrive has been conducted, Grow for all of the leaders, and Connect for all of our teammates on that site. And we continue to run our Safety for Life program as well. So you can see up on the screen, there's a couple of things there. Our downtime is down 400 minutes per week at the time we measured this, and our productivity was up 100 tonnes per week in the same time period. Our Workplace is an app, a communications app that we use. Workplace activation is 60 to 78%, which is one of the higher numbers across our organisation. But what's really important is the engagement level. The frequency with which people go on and seek information and use that app has gone up exceptionally well. But you can see down the bottom, our scorecard still shows we've still got some things to work on. So we're mid-journey. But our TRIFR, total recordable injury rate, is down 19%. Our LTIs are down 38%. And our CI program, our continuous improvement program, has delivered over $6 million in savings. These are fantastic results for a single site that has not yet finished the work that we're doing on culture. And we're very proud of the work that Ken and his team have been able to do in that particular site. It feels different, it feels better, and we're seeing the results for that. So we're standing up here today not telling you we've finished. We're midway in our journey. We're proud of what we've achieved, but we've still got a lot to go. And I hope at some stage in the future to come back and tell you a little bit more about our progress. Thanks for your time this morning.